Welcome everyone to today's myCHEP Q&A webinar for immediate and advanced users. Your speaker today is Aaron Minton, who's our Customer Systems Integration Manager at CHEP Australia. So webinars like this one today form a key part of CHEP's training and ongoing support program. So thank you everyone for joining us. I'll now hand over to Aaron, who will give a brief introduction of himself.
Hi everybody, thanks for joining again today. A lot of you I think already know me, so I'm not going to be going through huge amounts, but I've been with CHEP for a number of years now and had the pleasure of having a lot of those years looking after our customer systems. So we've gone through obviously a lot of big changes over the last few years and quite a lot still to come. So I'm really excited to present some of that stuff to you today and to also go through how we may be able to get you to use some of the systems a little bit more efficiently and talk about some of the future and where we're headed. So I'll hand that back over to Matt before we kick off onto the demo.
Fantastic. So just a couple of housekeeping things. So as you can see, please send through your questions throughout the webinar in the Ask Us question tab. We'll endeavour to get to these throughout the webinar, but if we're not able to unfortunately get to them, we'll respond to you after the webinar. And you'll also see some additional information in the top tabs. So additional information is available on myCHEP and also the training resources we've been able to create. We also ask that you stay on the line after this particular event for 1 to 2 minutes because we'd really value your feedback to understand how you found this webinar. So I'll now hand back over to Aaron, who will now provide the demonstration.
What I'm going to go through today is a couple of the more advanced options, understanding that we've aimed this at people who have used the system, so I just want to get a little bit more out of it. So keeping an eye on time, I will try and keep this fairly short, so about 15 minutes. I will move relatively quickly, but by all means, if something comes up that you want to ask some more questions about, please feel free to shoot through those questions, and we'll endeavour to cover those off where we can. Otherwise, we will come back to you following this session. So one of the first things we want to do is really go into the section that you will use quite frequently, which is the Review Modify screen within myCHEP. Now, one of the functions that you may or may not have had too much to do with is this Advanced Search button here. When you go in here, what this allows you to do is be quite specific about the information that you're actually requesting. So you can look at doing searches on transaction types. You can do searches on specific other parties. You can do searches on different equipment types or the different statuses of transactions. So this is really quite useful if you're trying to do rejection reports or reversal reports, should I say, suspended movement reports, movement reports to specific other parties. You can do that through there. You can also look at whether they're invoiced or not. You can put in specific invoice numbers. So it's really quite powerful, that advanced search. And that is in both this screen and in the reporting screen. So you'll see the same features across both. So that is something that you can actually utilize. So as an example in here, we could go in here and just say, just give me, and this is one of the questions that actually came through, how do I do reversal reports or correction reports? So what you could do here is you could say, okay, just show me the correction ins and outs. I'll just say done and search. And what this is then going to do is it will just show me the reversal and correction dockets that are in this date range. If you then wanted to say, okay, well, what are the actual whole movement chains of those? Because what you have here is this original docket number field, so it does give you the original docket number. But one of the changes we made recently is when you search by a docket number, it will give you the entire chain. So what I could actually do there is just take a copy of that docket number. I'll just clear out these other advanced searches, search by docket number, paste it in there, and then run. And remember, you can paste up to 200 docket numbers in here. So if you had multiples, you could just highlight them, copy and paste them, and it's going to show you the entire chain here. So that information is available. And again, just with regard to that advanced search, it's really quite powerful. One of the things that we've just changed in this last update last weekend was the transaction type, where it used to say transfer in, transfer in, transfer in, as an example for these three. So we've made this change now, so it's transfer in, reverse transfer in, and correction in. That is in both this screen and in the report, so you can see that there. I'm just going to click clear back here, and I'll just do a search to give me more dockets. So what I can do there, the other really powerful thing with this screen is you can do corrections in bulk. So I think a lot of you have probably realized that already, is that you can go in here, make the changes that you want to make to all of your individual dockets. So you want to make changes to 5, you can do those 5. So if you want to change the date or the equipment quantity or the equipment, you can just make those either on screen here by changing them, or you go into the details. So that obviously is there. Once you make your changes, you submit. However, one of the things that a lot of people haven't really noticed as yet is this mass update function, which is really quite powerful. So what you can actually do is if I take, and now you have to do it for all transfers in or all transfers out at one time, but if I was to take these 4 transfers in, for example, and let's just assume I wanted to change the date for these. So if I scroll across to the date, so that delivery date was meant to be the 24th for all 4 of those. Click on those 4 movements, click Mass Update, go to my delivery date, change it to 24th, and save. And what it's now going to do is, in bulk, it's now changed all of those 4 dates. So I don't have to go through one at a time. So in that Mass Update function, you can update any of these fields en masse. So any change you make to those, it will do to all of the movements you have ticked. But just remember, if you were to try and tick transfers out as well as a transfer in, it will actually tell you, sorry, your different movement types can't be bulk corrected at the same time. So with that mass update button, it has to be all ins or all outs. So let me just reset those changes. So one of the things that as well, some of you have seen, some of you I know are already using it, is the POD function. So what this is it allows you to update proof of delivery to an actual docket and connect it to it. We've made a change so you can add multiples now, where it used to be only one movement and it was only a PDF. You can now do any transaction type, any attachment type, and you can do multiples, so that's all there. The other thing that we've just updated is if you open out the details of a movement, you'll see this contact details hyperlink here. If you click on that, it's going to give you the contact details. So in some instances, there will actually be an individual contact assigned to an account, and they will then appear down here with email address and the like. So that was always there, but it was hidden under in the administration tab. We've now included that within the actual movement itself, so that's all there. So what I'll have a quick look now is in the reports module. Sorry, I'm moving fairly quickly, but please let us know if you've got any other particular questions. With regards to the reporting, in the scheduled report, the transaction activity report is the main report that we've had for some time. It's very similar to review, modify. The advanced search features, you'll notice, are exactly the same, so they're all there. But what is actually quite handy now is either from that report screen or from this button here, you can go to scheduled reports. So I've actually set one up already, but I'll show you how you can go through and do this. So again, one of the questions that came through was we get the daily correction reports. It's a bit hard to manage. Can we get this weekly? So one of the ways you can do this is you can set up this report yourself straight in here. So what you can do is you go to scheduled report. You can set it up either every day, just weekdays. You can customize it to Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, or in this example, I just created a weekly one. So then it says, what day of the week do you want? Yep, Monday's fine. Put in the end date of the report. It will give you a maximum period of 6 months, but then as it comes close to the end date of the report, it will give you a reminder to then say go in and renew it. Now that's done so that we don't have all these reports in there that are no longer used and chewing up all of our bandwidth and memory. So that's in there, but it allows you to do that. Give the report the name, then you put in what you want to do. So what you'll notice is at the moment the other party is 00. That's because a scheduled report hasn't run yet. The first time the report runs, it'll then populate that. But going forward, you can put in whatever you like. So you can then put in your transaction type. You can choose a transaction status, which is where this corrections report that I mentioned earlier, you could come in here and go transaction type, just give me the corrections. I've done it weekly. Give me the last 7 days and save. And what will happen, it will email you then on a Monday with that information. So the other thing that I want to quickly show is the bulk transfer. Actually, sorry, under the reports, there's one new report that we've just added this last release, which is the issue and return report. So one of the things in the transaction activity report, the issues and returns, it would only return the stuff that's happened in the past. The reason for that is in our reporting system, it only gets put in there once it's actually happened. What this report allows you to do is to look forward into the future. So you'll be able to say, okay, well, run this report for all my locations. You can put in all these different filters if you like. I've just run forward. Let's say I'll go forward to the 11th of April. If I then run that, it's going to then return for me in an Excel kind of format. You can download that, all the movements that are in place for the next, or for the date range that I've put in. So same as all the other tables in myCHEP, these are all sortable. Click on the column headers, they sort. You can do all of that. You can toggle the full screen. Again, is going to give you a bit better view. You can fit a bit more on the screen, or you can download to Excel. Okay. So I've toggled back off full screen. So in the other thing I wanted to show you, under transfers, we have this bulk transfer capture capability. So what this allows you to do is to go in and actually create movements in bulk. Now you can create up to a couple of thousand movements in bulk here. So if you're doing a whole stack of movements and you don't want to sit down and do one at a time, you can use this. A couple of ways you can use this screen, and one of the really powerful benefits of this screen is you're using multiple locations, or if you're reporting for multiple locations, you can do this one spreadsheet for all of your accounts. So if you manage 3 accounts, you can put all of their transactions in this one sheet, just making sure that your location is correct in here. So you get location and other parties, so just make sure that's correct. So a couple of ways you can do this. You can just start typing the information in here. And it will just start to auto filter. I can't do that because it's myself. And that has some checking in here. So you can just start typing in here. What you can also do, and one I prepared a little earlier, I've got some information here in Excel that I've just filled out. I can copy that, and I can just go in here and paste. Okay, so again, what this has picked up as well is a duplicate in this, so it does some checking. So these first 2 lines, it's picked up that they're an exact duplicate. So if I was then just to change the reference, it will then clear that duplicate, and away you go. Same as Excel, you can highlight all of these fields, and you can drag them down. So it does all that copy. It will come up a duplicate reference here because of these references. But you can do all of that. It works quite nicely. The other thing you can do is you can download the actual template. I won't go through that, but if you want to and you find this useful, go in and download that template. It's what we call a smart template, so it's going to download your trading partners with it. So it will allow, as Excel does, to drop down from lists and to auto guess what you're trying to type. So that is there, and you can use that. Once you've saved that template, you just upload the file, and then once you're done, it will be quite clear here as to, depending on how many movements you have, this could be useful. If you've got hundreds of movements and you've just got 3 in error, rather than scroll down, you can just flick to those and sort them out. So that allows you to go through and do all that fairly quickly. All right, so that's the bulk piece. The last thing I wanted to quickly show you today before we get to the questions is under the administration piece. If we go to the administration, the manage users. So for those customers who are set up, and by default we do set people up as administrators, we go into here. So what I can do there is then I can create users for myself. So if I'm an administrator and I want to create a user for my site, I can click Add User. When I put in, I'll just put in some random information here. Leave that all blank. Click Next. It will then say which accounts do you want to assign to it. Now it's only going to give me permission to assign accounts that I'm an administrator for. So if I was to say, yep, okay, I'll assign those 3, it will then say, okay, what permissions do you want to give those accounts? And I just go through, and I'm not going to go through the entire process now because it will take a little bit of time, but you just follow the bouncing ball, so to speak, assign the permissions that you want to assign, and then once that's done, the email address that you set up in that new user will then get an email with a temporary password. Once they log in with that, they can then go back in. I'm just going to go back and just turn that process off. They can then log in and do what they need to do. Okay, so yeah, I've just cancelled that, which is why I got the error. Okay, so just go back to home. The only other thing that I just want to share is you may have seen the release notes pop up into myCHEP in the last couple of days. If not, please keep an eye on that. We also promote them on social media. And what that does is gives us the updates, and here's the information here for the latest version. It gives you the release notes on what we've actually implemented new, what enhancements we've made, and then any fixes we've applied as well. So that's the main things I wanted to share today. So from here, I might
everyone, if you do have any questions, just remember to submit those through again just in the tab. So the first question that we've received, Aaron, for yourself is, reversal and corrections emails sent through daily are hard to manage and miss quite a few. Is it possible to set up a separate report on a weekly basis to capture these?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the one that I showed in the demo there before about setting up the scheduled report. So that would be how I'm going to share my screen again. So if you go into the scheduled reporting and go through the process and then set up the transaction status of correction in and correction out, and then just have that set to send once a week, whichever day you choose for the last 7 days, that will then give you exactly what you're after.
Fantastic. Thank you, Aaron. The next question that's come through relates to docket searches. So how do you search for a docket over multiple CHEP accounts against your login?
Yep, okay. So where you do that, if you go into menu and go into reports and go into transaction activity report, once you go in there, you'll see locations. So all you need to do is come in here and tick all the locations you want to search through. Then you can search by docket number, and then you put in the information there and search. And then that will then return all the dockets regardless of which account they're under.
Aaron? The next question that's come through is the current service centres assigned to our accounts are incorrect and require a manual adjustment by Metro Transport. Can we have the option to choose the service centre in myCHEP when entering orders manually?
Yeah, so this one's an interesting one. You certainly have the ability to choose the service centres when you're doing the transport yourself, but when it's a transport, CHEP transport one, unfortunately, you can't choose a service centre, because what actually happens is that request goes directly through to our transporters, so it doesn't actually come by CHEP. And so that information is actually created in we hold information by postcode allocation in a table in our system. So if there's a specific reason why a service centre needs to be used where it's not necessarily the closest service centre to you, that will have to be done. We do have a list, our Metro Transport team do have a list of those to review. But unfortunately, there's no way to manually assign those because of the way that the orders get automatically created.
Thank you, Aaron. The next question that's come through is when we do our pallet counts, we usually complete this task on night shift around 11 p.m. Then we'll check at 7 a.m. and need to check if any transactions took place in the morning shift. Is there a way to run a report at the count reset so I have a more accurate count?
Yeah, so look, the way I would probably do that is if we go into manage transactions and review modify, What I would do is just making sure your create date is, say for example, it was counted at the end of the night last night, just make sure your create date here was on the 27th, so today, and then run it. And that will just give you any dockets created today only. This date allows you to choose a bunch of different dates, so create date or notification date, probably you could use either of those, but that's the way I would do that, and that will give you any new dockets. Now, just be aware, if you're looking for dockets created today, you need to use the review modify, not the reports module. So the reports module is from our reporting system, which doesn't have today's data in it, so it gets updated from yesterday's information. But if you want today's information, make sure you're using review modify in managed transactions. And then what you can do, you can just export that to Excel and then do your calculations from there.
Thank you, Aaron. The next question that's come through is, can we use the scheduled reports feature for suspended movements?
Yes, absolutely. So let's go into the reports, scheduled reports. If I was to create a new one here, let's just leave all that default. I can come in here to transaction status, and I can untick all those and just click suspended. And so what that will do now, say you do it once a week, you can do it once a day if you like. The minimum time range is going to do is last 7 days, so it'll always give you the last 7 days worth. It will then give you all the suspended transactions for the last 7 days. As they move out of suspense, they will disappear off that report. Okay.
Thank you, Aaron. The next question we've got is, can we have at least a contact email appear of the trading partner submitting the correction/rejection emails from CHEP, assuming the majority of CHEP account holders have active email accounts? This will help resolve potential issues at a timely manner without having to run through the trading partner's company and try to find out the correct pallet contact.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're working on at the moment, we've done the majority of it. So if I was to take this one, for example, and look at the correction, if I was to open out the details there, I do get the contact details here. Now, in this example, you're seeing it just gives the general contact here. But what we're doing, we're going through and assigning. So there is a role within myCHEP. So if I go into administration and manage locations, so by all means, with customers, if you're looking at that or you want to set yours up or you're talking to your trading partners, what you can do, you can go into here and go into contacts. You'll see here a transaction management contact. You just need to add yourself in there or get somebody to add themselves in there. Once that's been done, it will send a request to our master data team to add a particular role to that contact in our system. Once that's been added, they will then appear in this section. So if I go into Review Modify and click on that and click on Contact Details, they will then appear as a second box or third box down here with the name, email address, and phone number. Okay, so that we are going through a process of adding all of those at the moment. So hopefully in the next few days you'll see some of those come up. But certainly through the looking that I've been doing, there is a number of accounts where we don't have appropriate contacts assigned or a primary contact is not assigned. Therefore, it's very difficult for us to go through one at a time and guess or contact everyone to find that out. So by all means, as customers, you have the ability now in that administration section to go in and assign yourselves to those roles. If you move on, there will be the ability to delete those roles. So, by all means, that would be great if we can start to spread that throughout the industry, and we get people to start using that to make these contacts more usable.
We've got time for one last question, and that question is, how do you print out the bulk transfers?
Okay, so at the moment, this is one thing that is on our list for development and going to be in very shortly. I think at this stage down for May, but if not May, definitely August. What we're going to be doing is making a change to this screen here, so review modify. So as an example, let's take, I did a number of these movements actually through bulk transfers. So when you create bulk transfers, you'll get a reference number. So what that will be, if I scroll across, it'll be a number like this, so it'll start with B. So if I copy that, and if I search by batch reference, what it's going to do is return all of these movements for me. And so these are all the movements that I did on my bulk transaction. So at the moment, the only way to do that is to go in and actually print those by clicking on that print. But what we will be doing is creating the ability to tick the boxes and do a print selected or a print all kind of function. So you'll be able to tick the ones you want and print all, and it will compress them all into a single PDF and allow you to print them out. But for now, the only way is to actually do that. Actually, there's one question that I did want to answer that I did see come through around the Exchange module, and just probably a quick 1 minute or 2 minutes on the next couple of releases that are coming up. So the next release we have is in May, followed by August, and then there'll be one later in the year. So the one in May, what we're going to be doing is implementing some new capability called advanced corrections or corrections requiring authorization. So what this is going to do is give the capability where in the past you've had to do written authority for corrections. So what essentially you'll be able to do is if corrections are not available for correction today, so say for example they've already been corrected once or they're past 60 days from date of invoice, right now in myCHEP you can't correct those. Going forward, what will happen is that you will be able to actually do the correction on the screen here. What it will do, it will send a request then through to the other party, and it will appear in their correction dashboard for them to then review and accept. If they then accept it, it will then create the correction. So no need for any written authority for CHEP now once we implement this. One of the reasons why I mention this is that transaction management contact that I mentioned a little bit earlier. That is really critical because that contact will get emailed when this information comes through and saying there's a correction requesting authorization. It will appear in your dashboard here in your alerts as well, but just something we wanted to add. So that's a really big release coming for us in May. August is when the exchange management section is coming in, so we're bringing the exchange management module into myCHEP. We've signed off the design, so that already development has started, so that's underway, so that will be in August. And then the final step for us really before we start to decommission portfolio is to bring in the reconciliation module. So at this stage that's scheduled for December, January. So at the end of this year, very early next year, the reconciliation module will be in. So we're going through designs on that at the moment, and that will happen sooner rather than later. But just a couple of quick things I wanted to add, Matt, before we finish up the questions.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for submitting your questions. We are 2 minutes till the end of this particular webinar. So what we do ask is if you can just stay on the line to complete a short survey just on your experience with the webinar. And thank you very much for joining today. We hope you found this useful, and we'll sure to send you further invites on further webinars that we have coming up. So thank you very much, everyone.